More moves are coming for the Toronto Blue Jays, and following the biggest contract in franchise history being signed yesterday by Dylan Cease, the Toronto Blue Jays are not done, as multiple new reports, including a huge report from Schneider, has revealed that not only are more moves coming, but they are going all in and doubling down on what has already been a crazy offseason. I'll break down these new reports and discuss who they're targeting, as well as the latest updates, as well as a few other things. A ton of things to go over in this episode, folks. But before we get into it all, if you're a part of the percentage who aren't subscribed to the channel, this is the place to be for daily Jays content. Ladies and gentlemen, a lot to go over today. And Dylan Cease, he was signed yesterday, biggest contract in franchise history, and it was a fantastic signing, a fantastic day, but they aren't done, and a bunch of new reports have dropped. But let's start with this one here. Now, there's a lot of updates to go over. I want to start with the report from Schneider because it is probably the most encouraging one. So they say now, you can see here, they now have both the time to let the market develop and an even more enticing platform to tempt others as they seek to strengthen their bullpen. And they do, according to Schneider and Ben Nicholson-Smith, remain in pursuit of Bo Bichette and Kyle Tucker, among other position player targets. I want to start with this because a lot of people thought once they signed Dylan Cease that they wouldn't be in on Kyle Tucker, and that not necessarily they wouldn't be in on Bo Bichette, but maybe it would be a bit more of a far cry because they just spent $210 whatever it was million, $182 million after deferrals on a starting pitcher. That is not the case. They are going more in than ever. They are willing to spend a ton of money, and they're still involved heavily in Bo Bichette and the Kyle Tucker sweepstakes, specifically at this point at least, Bo Bichette. And again, in case you missed it, they had been scouting Dylan Cease for a while, tried to acquire him multiple times in 2024. Feel free to check out my video from earlier today after you've watched this one, in its entirety after, if you want some more context on that. But folks, there's a lot to go over here. And this is even from, this is some more reports from Schneider as well. Even before those deals, Bo Bichette wanted to come back, so it stands to reason that's still the case now and that he'll remain in contact with the Blue Jays. Beyond Bichette, the Blue Jays are now well positioned to land the pitching they need. That includes one late inning arm and ideally a swing arm who could start if needed, which is an interesting part because we have Eric Lauer. But these reports are very crucial because obviously, following a big move, the reporters you want to focus most on are the guys connected to the team, Schneider and Ben Nicholson-Smith. And the verbiage of this report is, hey, they are all in on Bo Bichette. I'm getting a vibe that Bo is going to return, but bringing Dylan Cease into the Blue Jays not only is not hindering their ability to get Bo Bichette, but it is helping their ability. It's showing Bo Bichette, hey, we're fully committed to winning. We now have one of the best pitchers, if not the best pitcher available in free agency. So now hopefully Bo can come back, and we also know they're heavily targeting a late inning relief arm. If they get Dylan Cease, one of the better relief arms available, and bring Bo Bichette back, that's an A-grade offseason, right? Is it A+? Maybe not, but it's an A-grade. And of course, they're still interested in Kyle Tucker, but more moves are coming, and most notably, a late inning relief arm, which we'll have a full video covering on later today or probably tomorrow, but also Bo Bichette as well. And this is a report from another reporter. This was an American reporter, or I believe this one's actually from Mitch Bannon of The Athletic. So the most obvious next priority would be bringing Bo Bichette back. These are all from Jays reporters this morning into this afternoon, right? Because of course they had time to check with their sources, what their next plans are. And of course, with the wheel going now with their first major signing in the offseason officially, I guess not, it's been officially underway for a while, but kind of underway in Jays land here, a lot of news is going to start to come out. But their number one priority is Bo Bichette. And again, this is from Mitch Bannon. Cease's signing won't quell interest in keeping Bichette, the homegrown star, but with Ernie, Jimenez, and Berger able to fill the role, there is a possibility that retaining Bichette isn't necessarily a mandatory move. They could pivot to guys like Jorge Polanco. They could make a trade for guys like Ketel Marte. So that's another, variant of the move they could make is letting Bichette walk and trying to upgrade elsewhere, though most tend to believe that Bo Bichette is next. Now, when you're looking at the next move to come, it's probably going to be, at least from what we're hearing, a relief arm, right? And you can see here, sources tell Yahoo Sports the Jays have been one of the most aggressive teams in the high leverage reliever market and could make a move to pair the likes of Devin Williams, Edwin Diaz, Pete Fairbanks, or Robert Suarez with, of course, Jeff Hoffman, who struggled a little bit this year and, of course, gave up that home run to Miguel Rojas, which we're not going to talk about because obviously no point in doing that. But they seem heavily involved in the reports that came out after the signing of Cease is that they're heavily involved in a reliever. So I'm expecting, an Edwin Diaz signing, quite frankly, somewhat soon. But also, Kyle Tucker is very possible as well. And that's where things become interesting here. Because you look at Kyle Tucker's savant, we've done this a lot. There's a world where they let Bichette walk, they sign Kyle Tucker, and then they could trade for Ketel Marte. The good thing is, you saved all of your assets now by signing Dylan Cease. on a position player if you want to go that route. Now, they could go the route of just holding on to their prospects. You have some really highly touted prospects. You're not trading Trey Savage. He's untouchable. You have Arjun Amala. You have Gage Staniford. You have Jake Bloss. You have RJ Schreck. You have a lot of guys, I mean, Ricky Tiedemann, who have value, right? Their farm system's in a much better spot, a complete 180 to where it was a few years ago, or a couple of years ago, rather, and especially now because, of course, 2 years ago, they sold at the trade deadline, got a bunch of players back and things like that. You even have guys like Joey Loperfido, who would bring value. You don't have to do that in the starting pitching market because they got the guy they like. And I'm not entirely sure on the fact that, I'm not entirely sold on the Jays wanting one of Ranger Suarez or some of the other starters, even Tatsuya Imai. I don't think they wanted any of them. They wanted Dylan Cease. You could bring Kyle Tucker in, and there is multiple reports, including one from Keegan Matheson that I'm not including in this video. I'll have in a video tomorrow. They're all in still on Kyle Tucker and Bo Bichette if they become available. And of course, now everyone's going to be watching Bo Bichette. And whether he's seen as a second baseman, whether he's seen as a shortstop, if you're giving a pitcher who's coming off of a 4.55 ERA season, and I'm a huge fan of the deal, ERA doesn't really mean anything in this specific instance. Like, his expected ERA is a run lower than his actual ERA last year. His FIP is a run lower than his actual ERA. He's going to be elite, and he's one of the most, if not the most, durable starter in the MLB. You can easily, like, if you're paying $210 million to Dylan Cease, you're going to pay that to Bo Bichette if that's what it requires. And it would be a similar contract. But at the same time, this is another report you can see here in the middle. If Bichette signs elsewhere, the Blue Jays can pivot to another big free agent bat, such as Kyle Tucker. And according to sources, Toronto has kicked the tires on Kyle Tucker, but the team's interest is unclear at this point. And that's because of the fact that, and this one's from Yahoo Sports, so a different reporter, but this one's the fact that, simply based on the, idea that if Bo Bichette walks, you go for Kyle Tucker. That makes a ton of sense. But the reason their interest level is unclear, I'm not entirely sold on the Jays getting both at this point. I just don't think it's going to happen, right? I think at this point in time, you're probably stuck with one or the other. And not stuck. That's still a great, outcome here. I wouldn't be surprised, though, if they make another trade for a bat. The first job is done. You have a starter that complements your team perfectly outside of, the ideal circumstance of him somehow being getting a lefty pitcher, but none of those were available as good as Dylan Cease. You have 5 really, really, really elite starters, essentially, right? I'm not saying each one of them are elite, but together they're an elite rotation. You have a high-velocity guy, a guy who strikes out a ton and who gives up a ton of home runs, which is seems to be a mandatory requirement for Jays starting pitchers. But at the same time, and for Dylan Cease, for those wondering, he has like a 10% fly ball to home run ratio, which is awful. But most of their pitchers have awful ones, home run to fly ball ratios. They're in a great position to bring Bichette back. If they don't, you have other plans. You're going to be in on Kyle Tucker. More moves are absolutely imminent. It's just a matter of when, right? It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. And keep an eye out on the next move being for a reliever. We'll keep you up to date every step of the way. Edwin Diaz has been heavily linked to the Jays dating back to Ken Rosenthal a few weeks ago. Keep an eye on that. And we'll keep you up to date every step of the way. So keep an eye on the channel. We'll keep you with the latest update, with the latest news.